Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Today's Monday, May 17th. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And to make this meeting official, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gunkopf. Here. Hesse. Here. Shea. Here. Leader.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Hipskin. Absent. York.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner. Wagner.
Here.
13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, 1 absent. We have an official quorum. Next on the agenda, which is item number 3 on the agenda, is a TIF presentation, TIF funds that we're going to be releasing to our school district. And I see we have Dr. Lynn Krizik, our superintendent of schools, in the audience, and board chairperson Peggy Ostachek. If you please join me at the podium over here to my right, that'd be great. TIFs have been somewhat of a question in our town, but having been on many task forces that have served our school district, having been very active with our last school referendum, myself and Kevin Diamond and many of us worked hard. I see people in the audience who worked hard on that referendum, as well as people on the dais. Our TIFs have proven to be very successful. We have 3 TIF districts in Elmhurst. We have our downtown TIF that Mayor Quinn put in place back in the 80s and contributed to the revitalization of a downtown that was very, very blighted at one time. Moved here in '76, and we watched Oak Brook Mall get built and watched our downtown really kind of have some struggles, and the TIF really put the tool in place for redevelopment. And we have our St. Charles and 83 TIF, which is where Coles and Dominic's is, and that people remember years ago how that looked. Another blighted area, been very successful. Our TIF districts, with carve-outs from our downtown, release annually over $1 million a year to our schools. And now we're doing, this year we're doing a surplus out of TIF 2, which is our Lake Street TIF. And the surplus this year is actually going to net our school district, I have a check here, $434,082.50. Actually, that's going to be received by the district on Thursday. We're proud of that. We've got, I think, the youngest board, or youngest council, I should stand corrected, of older people with kids in our public schools, and we are very concerned about growing our tax base for our schools, and TIFs allow us to do that. And also at the same time, we are good stewards of those dollars, and we're proud here tonight to have a check for over $400,000 for our District 205. So I would like to present this check to Dr. Krizik and to Peggy Ostachek, and we really appreciate all of their hard work. We have a great school district that drives people to this town. It's kept people like myself with 3 kids, my wife and I, in this town, and we're proud of our district. We're proud of what you guys do, and given a situation fiscally with all of us, it's great that we're working together, and I'm very proud of that relationship. So thank you. Thanks, Dr. Okay, moving on. I thank Dr. Krizik and President of the Board, Ostachek, Peggy Ostachek, for their fine hard work and for doing a great job and working with us to keep this town, not only our town nice, but our schools in the best possible position to teach our kids. So, and we are driving the bus. Many people wanted me to run for school board, and I decided to run for mayor because we're the only governmental body that drives a school bus of economic development. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we have probably the most progressive board up here that wants to build it to schools, and I think that's a great thing. So we'll hopefully use these tools as much as we can to keep on building that tax base. Before I go to written communications and petitions and public forum, I know we have an issue on Gladys that is going to committee. It's on a referral on the consent agenda. So just so that no motion is going to be taken on that tonight. So just so everybody knows, we're not making anything binding on this issue as far as that going to the committee. It'll be in the Public Works Committee, I believe, next week, so just so everybody understands that. Item 4, written communication and petitions from the public. If there's anyone that has petitions and or written communications, if you'd like to present those at this time to Clerk Spencer, that would be great. You see we have a nice lady with some petitions. We'll accept those.
Thank you.
Enter those into the minutes. Anybody else with written communications and or petitions from the public? Okay, seeing none, I will now go on to public forum, and it's where any resident from Elmhurst has up to 3 minutes. I would ask if you would, when I ask for people that would like to speak for public forum, please raise your hand. I will call on you upon being called on. There's microphones to my right and to my left. Please state your name and your address, and you would have up to 3 minutes to speak about any Elmhurst issue that you would like to speak about. All righty, Mr. Revelletti, so you have your hand up.
John Revelletti, 625 Gladys. I just want all the aldermen up there to know that there are 57 houses on Gladys, and on those petitions, we have 38 no vote. We don't want it. We do not want the street narrowed to put in a sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Revelletti. Anyone else for public comment at this time? Tamara?
Sorry. I'm glad to be on a first-name basis. This is good. My name's Tamara Brenner. I live at 137 North Caroline Avenue here in Elmhurst. I sent an email to the council and to Mr. DeCiani earlier today regarding my surprise at seeing on tonight's consent agenda item J regarding Elserco Inc. Public Affairs and Consulting Services, which is going to be referred to the Finance Committee. Pursuant to a conversation I had with Mr. Mayor earlier this afternoon, I have been paying close attention to the open meetings of the city for the past 3 months, and I am aware that the first I heard of the lobbyist idea was something I read in the paper that Mr. DeCiani had stated, and I have been keeping an eye open for that because that is an issue that interests me about whether the city really needs a lobbyist or not. I have been paying attention. I haven't seen that issue discussed in this council or in the committee that would be appropriate to be discussed in since I read about it in the newspaper. So to me, having this thing pop up where Mr. Borchard and Mr. DeCiani have been actively interviewing lobbying firms to find one suitable for the city, and now we've got a contract offer basically by one of these firms, not a proposal of what they would do, but an actual contract that's been signed by the president of that company that's on the agenda tonight to be presented to the committee. I found that a little surprising that that would just appear. I did find out from Mr. DeCiani some interesting information about the reason why lobbyists would be considered, and that part of that is to obtain release of certain funds that have been earmarked already for the city of Elmhurst, including $2.5 million from a Metra grant and $1 million from a road grant. And I agree, it'd be great for the city to have those funds released. I don't know the terms under which they would be released. I don't know if a lobbyist would be helpful in getting them released. Maybe a lobbyist would be helpful in that. I don't know, but that seems like something that should be discussed before hiring one, whether it would be useful to spend $30,000 for a 6-month period, which is what the contract calls for, to get money released that's already owed to the city. I understand Mr. DeCiani feels that the $30,000 paid to the lobbyist would be an insurance policy to get that money. Again, maybe we could get that money without paying any $30,000 at all, and that's basically my concern. I actually don't think that it's right the way this is being sent to the committee as well, where the paperwork that's being sent is from this lobbyist firm itself, not from the city. Seems kind of odd to be presenting them with this very specific task right now. So I would actually ask that the item be pulled from the agenda today and a more global conversation to be had discussing whether it's warranted to hire a lobbyist at all before considering the specific paper that is in the packet. Thanks.
Thank you, Tamara. And gentleman there with the striped shirt.
Hi, I'm Richard Hoffman, 605 West Gladys. Just wanted to comment on, even though it's being moved to the Public Works Committee, about the sidewalk and the proposal that's been presented by the city engineers to reduce the width of Gladys Avenue. The SSA that was written last year did specifically talk about putting sidewalks on the north side of Gladys Avenue. It did not ever mention making such major adjustments to the street as currently being presented by the city engineers. The city engineers did send us a letter indicating that, in fact, the scope of the original project greatly exceeds the targeted budget amount, and therefore they were looking for an alternate design. However, this alternate design is not within the scope of the way the SSA was written. So again, I know it's the Public Works Committee who will be reviewing this situation. I would imagine there will then be a feedback back to the City Council. At that time, I asked the City Council to consider, in fact, canceling the SSA as was written because it cannot be delivered based on the budgetary target that was set. And then help us homeowners who are paying our tax bills and already being charged for the SSA to recover that money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Three to pick from here. Ms. Heslop.
My name is Darlene Heslop, and I live at 200 North Michigan Avenue, number 227 in Elmhurst. I, too, am concerned about item J on the consent agenda, and we just got through listening to approximately 5 months' worth of discussions on the City of Elmhurst dire financial situations, and we were made aware of the need to make cuts in all areas of our local government, as well as a substantial increase in property taxes and fees. And now, all of a sudden, we get this contract for $30,000, $5,000 a month during what is quite possibly the slowest time down in Springfield. The $2.5 million grant is actually a grant from Washington, D.C., part of the Obama stimulus package, so talk to D.C. about that one, don't talk to Springfield. And I talked to Mr. Robletti's son about a month ago about this, and he basically said the state is broke, period, broke. So whether you are Democrat or Republican or independent or blue in the moon, you're not gonna get anything, period. It's not gonna work. So I don't understand why we are going to spend $30,000 of hard-earned taxpayer money to a lobbyist who has ties, big ties, to Todd Stroger at Cook County, okay? Big ties, $500,000 worth, $500,000 worth last year, okay? Why are we doing this? I really want to know. Tell us why we're doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heslop. Gentleman in the back, please. Or, this gentleman here with the hand up. There we go.
Hi, my name is Brian Cahill. I live at 569 West Gladys Avenue. Just a little background. My undergrad is a mechanical engineer. I have a master's in biomedical engineering. My father was a civil engineer, and I grew up with this company building streets. I also own a company with an engineering firm, so I understand what the engineering group has gone through, and I applaud them. In fact, the new proposal has demonstrated a great ingenuity that provides a well-balanced solution that stays within the proposed budget. The engineering group should be congratulated on this solution. We are all proud of them and for them in representing us in the city of Elmhurst. And just a note on the narrowing of the streets. It's my understanding is the residents don't own the streets. The residents don't even own 15 feet into their property line. That is a city property. And my opinion, if they can bring something within budget and fulfill the SSA, that is a great and well-balanced solution, and we should applaud that. Also, one of the other issues was the safety on the streets. By narrowing a street, you will slow down the traffic. There's been a lot of miscommunication, misinformation that has been going around, and if we could have someone to present the true facts and present that to everyone in the residents, I think the 38 votes or petitions that they've signed or have people sign would change. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back. Applaud.
My name is Claude Pagach. I live at 566 Gladys. This is the story of the Gladys Avenue. In 2008, a petition was given to the city with the idea of putting sidewalks on the north side of the street. A letter was sent to the people on the north side of the street. It was voted in by them by 1 vote. The committee in charge of streets recommends to the city council vote it in because of an ordinance that says a sidewalk can be on one side of the street, and we have the funds. Council is locked up, mayor votes, it goes in. That was in 2008. We're in 2010. The engineers gave a price to the committee. It's what they based their judgment on. The street was surveyed. The price goes up by 100%. Or an alternate. Saw the street, make it narrower, put the sidewalks 2 feet behind the curb. It doesn't make sense because it was never part of the original ordinance that was voted on. Okay? Now the people of Gladys paid for it, and he may very well be right. You own the street. You narrow that street. By the drawing, it's 24 feet of running street, not 25. You got 2 curbs that are 6 inches. That narrows the street. If you want to live on it when an ambulance or a fire truck tries to get down with cars parked on either side, you live on it. On top of it, after aggravating everybody on the block about these sidewalks, where people have lived there for 40 years, the city was kind enough to send a letter to the assessor before they even had sidewalks, and on their tax bill, they're paying for something they don't have. That's the truth of it. You can ask any of them. And the assessor was kind enough to tell them that since they have sidewalks that they can't quite see because they're buried under the grass, okay, the value of their home is going to increase. Now, nobody in the city, not our alderman, at any time over a year's time was informed by anybody in this administration that it was double the cost, that you had to chop up the street to get it in.
Claude, you got about 10 seconds, and I apologize, but I'll let you wrap up here.
All right, I'll wrap up. What I'm saying is this. This whole thing has been a fiasco from the day it started to the day it ends, because there isn't an alderman here that can say within 1 year of this thing being handled that they heard anything about cutting sidewalks or a price of $280,000. Our own alderman didn't even hear it.
Thank you, Claude. Just for the record, I wasn't mayor in 2008. This happened in 2009. The street will be wider than Spring Road after the sidewalk goes in, wider than Spring Road. So as far as ambulances or public safety getting down the street, we would never compromise the safety of any of those folks, any of you folks on Gladys. Wider.
Come down and there's a car on either side of the street, right. You get a fire.
Okay. Wider than Spring Road. Anybody else?
There's no parking.
Okay, there we go.
Gilbert Fisher, Fischer, 586 North Van Auken Street. My comment bill is $56.67. In there's a tax for the city of Elmhurst, $6.34. Yet every street in my neighborhood is broken and cracked and needs to be replaced. My gas bill, $126.35. Tax to the city of Elmhurst, $222.27. Yet every time it rains, my street floods. Therefore, I figure the sewers have to be replaced. My AT&T bill, $20.33. In there's a tax of $1.02 to the city of Elmhurst. Every couple months, I have to clean the flappers on my toilets because sand and grit gets in there, so I figure the water pipes have to be replaced in my neighborhood. Now, the city of Elmhurst has raised my taxes on my house over 250%. Not one penny of that money is going to go into my neighborhood to help me. It's all going to go downtown Elmhurst so you can have buildings and parking decks and fancy sidewalks and fancy lights. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not God. I wish you would go to the library and see what happens to dictators, kings and queens that squeeze the little people like me. Read history. I'm asking you to correct this. A 250% more increase in my taxes so you can play God. But believe me, you people are not God.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. DeMando?
My name's Rich DeMando. I live at 568 West Avenue on the corner of West and Gladys. In addressing the sidewalk issues, it's pretty obvious to me, I don't know about anyone else in this room, but it's pretty obvious to me that the mayor has already made up his mind where he stands on this issue and is going to do anything he can to push it through, even though he's lied to us a number of times already. He told us that the sidewalks would be in for a year before any of us would see the bill. And as you've heard already, we're already paying $200 and something. He's lied to us about it not being more than $10 a month to anybody here when it's been $20 a month on my tax bill. I don't know about the rest of these people. He's also told us that none of us would be really affected by the way this is, and the south side of the street had nothing to say about it. Now you're talking about narrowing the street, which affects everybody who lives there. No longer is this just an issue to satisfy the 15 people that live on the north side of the street that want this. Now there's 57 homes involved, and you have a petition in front of you. 38 out of the 57 homes involved have voted against this. We don't want it. Now we're hoping that the city council will take into account what the majority of the citizens in this area want and not just cave in to the special vocal interests of these 15 people. 39 people, or 38 people, almost 70% of the people that live on this block want nothing to do with the streets narrowed. But you're going to turn around and tell us that it's going to get done anyway? I don't see how this could be right. And I'd like you to answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. DeMando. In the back?
Diana Pagach, I live at 566 West Gladys Avenue. I go to the beauty shop on Spring Road, and I want to tell you, that street is not 25 feet wide. There's practically parking plus 2 cars can get by, and by the time you would narrow it to go down to 24 feet, it would be the smallest street in the whole town. All the streets along West Avenue are all the same size as Gladys. And I don't see how you can say that it would be the same size as, the same width as Spring Road. And we've had that, the way the road is now, the width of it would be the same as everybody else's, and I'm sure you can work out some sort of situation to put their sidewalks in without narrowing our street. Thank you.
Thank you, miss. Woman on the end there?
Pat Consolino at 659 Gladys. I feel the best way to settle this whole project with your sidewalk that only 15 houses want on this street. When you go to finish our street, resurface our street, put in their sidewalks. Let them pay for their sidewalks. Leave the rest of us alone. We don't want them. We don't want our street narrowed. There's no reason whatsoever that we need them, and you're going to destroy property of the 5 houses that are up on the hill. You're going to wreck their property. You're going to tear down our trees. It makes no sense. If they want sidewalks, whoever wants a sidewalk on Gladys Avenue or anywhere in Elmhurst, and I've seen it done all over Elmhurst. This house has a sidewalk, this has grass, this has grass, that has a sidewalk. You want a sidewalk, put it in. Simple as pie. It's the builder that sold them those houses that promised them that they were getting sidewalks. That's why they want their sidewalks. They don't come down our way to take their kids to school. We have no problem with them having a sidewalk. Let them have it. Don't narrow our street. We have 2 houses across the street from us that ambulances are there all the time. You put a car out on that street, that ambulance is not going to get down there. You're going to put the sidewalk closer to the street when you narrow it. Now these kids are going to be riding their bikes up and down the street, and they're going to fall off, they're going to hit their head on the curb, or they're going to fall into the street. That makes no sense. Leave us alone. Put the sidewalks in when you surface our street for them, not the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Anyone else for public forum at this time? Gentleman with the beard?
My name's Al Consolino, 659 West Gladys, and I live with that lady right there. My concern, and not so much concern, but I'm not too adverse on business. I never took business courses. My checkbook balances, and I'm not here to humiliate anybody or whatever. What I'd like to find out is now in the process of shortening this street, if so be it the city fathers vote on it, shortening this street, is this money coming to shorten this street? Where's this money coming from? I know the resurfacing is supposedly in the city, but we have 9 or 10 trees on there that are gonna have to be cut down. If they cut those trees down, who's gonna do it? And where is the charge gonna go? Are we gonna have the people from the forestry division of our maintenance division that take care of the trees and cut the trees down? Because if they are, then everybody in the whole town of Elmhurst is paying for this. You can't shuffle that off onto another project. The curbs, is there gonna be a general contractor come in, or are our city people gonna be doing any of this work? The sewers that have to be moved up. I have a sewer in front of my house, which is constantly loaded with leaves. They're gonna have to move that up 3 feet. The people from the maintenance department are gonna have to come and do this. Well, if this thing is supposed to be standing on its own merit, why are we using city funds to cut trees, to move sewers, to plug in an electric wire for the lamps that might have to be moved, when we have no money? Well, you're increasing the taxes over 200%. Tough economy. Everybody figured the big bubble with the housing. We're making lots of money. Property taxes go up. We're making lots of money. Housing bubble burst. The economy, 10% unemployment. What's going to happen next year? We're going to have a 400% tax increase? Everybody around us, you put extra tax on garbage, water, sewer, Villa Park, Lombard, all the suburbs around us. They don't pay for those extra big garbage cans. We have to pay for them. So when you make a statement that says we're the lowest county or we're the lowest town in DuPage that has the lowest taxes, I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Debbie?
Hi, I'm Debbie DeMondo, 568 West Avenue. I've always been against the sidewalks, and I kept hearing about safety issues. And when I think about how close the sidewalks are going to be to the street, I think that's scarier than not having a sidewalk. And then in the winter, when it starts snowing, where's all that snow going to go? On the sidewalks. And when this first came up, the people that wanted a sidewalk made a big deal about having a 51%, 51% of the people were for it. But now we have 70% that are against it. I just think we do better without it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Demando. Anyone else for public forum at this time? Go ahead.
Sally Del Rio, 541 West Gladys Avenue. My husband Fernando and I strongly support the proposed revised Gladys Avenue sidewalk project. After attending the open house on last Wednesday, we better understand the complexities and of the grading issues posed when trying to come up with a viable plan that stayed within the budget initially. We feel fortunate to live in a town that employs very knowledgeable and capable civil engineers who were able to come up with a revised sidewalk plan that not only allows us to have sidewalks, but a plan that minimizes or avoids the need for retaining walls and other major grading problems. Also, with the revised plan, several of the trees and bushes that were slated to be removed on the initial plan will now remain. Sidewalks increase the safety of our residents and the guests on Gladys Avenue as it provides a passageway where people do not have to share space with motor vehicles. The revised plan includes a 2-foot grass area between the curb and the sidewalk, which provides a buffer and makes the sidewalks and street adjustments aesthetically pleasing. The new proposal stays within the approved budget and does not cost residents any more than originally planned. We also strongly support the proposed street modifications, as the city has informed us that the standard street width in Elmhurst is 25 feet, and the proposed street modification is in line with the standard street width in Elmhurst. Furthermore, there is no cost to the south side residents and no additional cost to the north side residents to modify the street. Emergency and other vehicles can easily pass down the street. Also, our city engineers that we have a lot of faith in came up with this revised plan, and they would not put forth a revised plan that would compromise the safety of all of our residents. With the improved street conditions, the new asphalt, what have you, vehicles can more smoothly proceed without the need to swerve around potholes, cracks, and other street blemishes. A newly paved street and a new sidewalk will surely be attractive additions both in safety and aesthetics to our beautiful neighborhood. In July, the vote was in our favor. We were supposed to get sidewalks. What they've come up with is a viable plan that is all within the code, the budget, the policy. There's nothing different except for a narrowing of a street, which is still within the policy and code of the city of Elmhurst. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Del Rio. Anyone else in public forum at this time? Anybody? Hearing none, I officially close the public forum for this meeting. And before I go on to the consent agenda, I would just like to be a little informant on what's on here. Two of the items that were addressed here in public forum. This is the consultant for lobbyists is a referral. And we have in our budget a line item for a lobbyist. Given the fact that we have about $2.5 million in grant money that has not come in yet, we have a lot at stake that's in our budget. If we do not get that money, it's a big hole. There is capital dollars that does come through the federal government, but that also comes through the state. So we need Springfield to release those dollars. So it's imperative that we have at least look at this. So we're not voting on this tonight. We do everything open and transparent. We'll go through the committee process, and folks will look at this in committee and see if it's reasonable, and we'll move it to the council for a vote. So on the sidewalk issue for Gladys, we were trying to come up with a compromise that was in budget. Okay, the compromise, we had a public meeting last week and had an open house. Both sides of this issue were open to come to this. Again, this is a referral to committee for that particular sidewalk issue. It is totally within the SSA. We are under budget, okay, which is important on this. And we were actually trying to meet the needs of some of the owners that were against this. People that were worried about losing their fence, like Mr. Demando, will not lose his fence. People like Mr. Rebeletti, who was worried about his driveway and elevations, that will be fixed with this. But the problem is that those people are using this as an excuse. Now, we'll let this all play out. I don't control the votes up here. I just split a tie. But this will go through the process, just like everything else, and we'll let the process work its way out. That's on the agenda. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands. No action will be taken tonight. Okay. At this particular time on the consent agenda, I'd ask if there is anybody that would have a question on an item, possibly might want to vote no. If we're going to acknowledge anything on the consent agenda, I would rather do that afterwards in other business or in acknowledgements. But questions or vote no, we'll pull any items that anybody would have a request on. Alderman Gutenkopf?
Item J.
Item J. All righty. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, less item J. Alderman Pezza, Alderman Healy. With a second, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Pezza.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Shay.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Pipskin, absent. York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. The consent agenda is passed, less item J. And at this time, I would ask Clerk Spencer to, actually, this is a referral, so there's really nothing to read on this regarding All Circle. I'd ask for a motion at this time and a second to put this particular item on the floor, please. Alderman Gutenkopf with a motion, Alderman Mulliner with a second, and discussion. Alderman Gutenkopf?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Typically, we don't discuss referral or the merits of a referral until after it goes to committee and comes back from committee. I pulled this because I don't believe this is the appropriate referral. I think that this is posing the wrong question. I think what the referral should state, or should ask, is whether or not we actually need a lobbyist. Instead, this referral, and since the clerk didn't get an opportunity to read into the record what the referral is, I'll do that. It is respectfully...
real quick, Clerk Spencer, would you like to read the referral, please? Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Would you like to read the
referral?
No, just
the last line.
Just
Okay.
the last line.
It is respectfully requested that the City Council authorize the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee to review and advise on the consulting lobbying proposal from the All Circo, Inc. firm to serve the City of Elmhurst for the city fiscal year 2010-2011. Respectfully submitted, Thomas P. Borchert, City Manager.
Okay, Alderman Gutenkopf, go ahead.
Thank you.
And again, we're not discussing the actual...
I'm not discussing the
Right.
merits of the referral. I'm discussing whether or not the referral should actually happen, because I don't believe that we are asking the appropriate question. I think the City Council hasn't weighed in on whether or not we should even be hiring a lobbyist. So to come to us with a proposal for a potential firm skips a whole step. And with that reason, I don't believe that this referral is appropriate. I think that if we want to talk about whether or not the city should hire a lobbyist at the Finance and Council Affairs Committee, that would be great. I'm uncomfortable that we've gone to the step of already narrowing down the list of potential firms to a firm and
Point of order.
Yeah, Alderman
I think
Morley?
we're getting close to discussing.
Thank you.
Right.
I
Yeah.
would,
You're right.
I appreciate that.
I would recommend,
Yeah.
if Alderman Gutenkopf would like a subsequent, or an additional referral as to whether or not the city should have a lobbyist, I would support that referral as well. This is a referral. I think we all know up here, there's going to be at least 2 meetings on this before we even come close to voting. So whether or not we like how it's been worded, I'll support this referral, and if Alderman Gutenkopf would like to add a subsequent referral to whether or not we want a lobbyist at all, I'd support that referral as well.
Thank you. Alderman Nybo?
I mean, I think we need to be careful about what Alderman Gutenkopf is suggesting, that we should prejudge any referral. I mean, I could make a referral that we should all wear the color blue to our meetings. It's our prerogative as alderpersons to bring issues as we see fit to the appropriate committee at the council level. And I don't think we should be prejudging them. It's a procedural tactic that we have, a technique that we have, and every suggestion, no matter how reasonable nor unreasonable, deserves to have its say in front of a committee. And I don't think we should be prejudging them.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other discussion? Alderman Pezza.
I think that being said, based on both or all three responses. I don't feel I know enough about this subject, no matter what the referral is. So if we feel that everyone should have their say, I would agree with Alderman Morley, and I'm willing to listen to the discussion on the one before us, and I would also be willing to listen to discussion, probably in parallel, as to what Alderman Morley suggested. So I would not disagree with discussing the whole, two proposals, two recommendations.
Alderman Nabo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one other side point. I believe that is why we once had it as a practice that we wouldn't vote on referrals, because voting on referrals actually leads us into the bad habit of making policy judgments on them before we actually consider them as we're supposed to.
Right. I would agree. Alderman Rose?
I just have a point of clarification. With the referral, there was a boilerplate contract that listed the date of May 17th. I want to make sure that as we send this to committee, we are not contracting with anyone as of today.
Correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Seeing that this is a referral, this is something we do not have to vote on. Is that correct, City Attorney Serino? Should I just put it through as a referral, or do we need to vote on this?
Since I've been here, I thought your practice, Mr. Mayor, was to vote on these.
Vote on it? Okay.
But a voice vote would be fine. And
all righty. All in favor of putting this referral through, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Referral
Nay.
passes. Okay. Alderman Gutenkopf for the record votes nay.
And Alderman Shea.
Alderman Shea? Okay.
Point of order, it's not on the record if it's a voice vote.
Okay. Very good. And that referral goes to committee. On to item 7, committee report. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the report, please.
Okay. It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the monthly rates charged for solid waste removal and the prices paid for refuge stickers be adjusted as outlined above, effective July 1, 2010. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, unsigned by Michael Graham, Vice Chairman, unsigned by Pat Shea, and signed by Chris Healy.
And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put the report on the floor. Alderman Kennedy with a motion, with a second by Alderman Healy, and discussion, Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before us, we have the change to the BFI rates for our, related to waste rates here. And what we did was, Allied, excuse me, thank you. What we, what's that? You can't hear? No. Can you hear me now? Okay. What we wanted to look at here was the rate structure, and remember, this was part of the budget that we voted on. We voted on 14-0, that this was part of it. What happened here was that city staff, during the budget process, went and looked at the costs related to the administering of this program. So they went back and they did an activity-based costing of what resources are put in place by the city to collect waste and everything that goes along with that, with the rubbish fees. When they did that analysis, they saw that there is a disconnect in what we have typically allocated for this program as compared to what we were actually spending as a city. With that, so there were two pieces to that that came up to just about $50,000. From there was a look again at the budget related to the IT costs. And we all talked about during the budget that there were significant investments we were making from an IT standpoint because we knew that was an area that we needed to improve in our infrastructure to foster many things in the city, but one of those is to how we can get more efficiency and better services going forward. So as we looked at this and as the city staff did, they came up and saw that the amount of money that we were spending to administer this program was $99,000 different than the amount of revenue that we were bringing in to this process. So what was done was to make an adjustment in the rates to recoup that $99,000 so that we are collecting the same amount of money it takes us to administer this program.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other discussion? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a tough one for me because of the fact that there was discussion and compromise within committee. One of my biggest griefs in regards to how we do our billing to the citizens, the residents of Elmhurst, is that, in my opinion, it's been disproportional for those individuals who use the 33-gallon garbage can relative to the 96-gallon toter. And what I mean by that is that the 96-gallon toter is paying half per gallon rate, or was paying approximately 50% per gallon compared to a 32-gallon trash can. So I want to give kudos to my fellow committee members that there was a slight reduction in cost for the 33-gallon per gallon rate for that size of a trash receptacle. My issue being, though, and the reason why it was unsigned, and I contemplated this long and hard, was Allied Waste. This is the third year out of a 5-year contract for Allied Waste. And this year, 3 years ago, the city negotiated with them, and this year there's no increase by Allied to us, the city of Elmhurst. So it's difficult for me to go with a $99,000, and initially it was $118,000 increase in revenue. Upon discussion, and I give kudos, I believe, to Alderman Healy, that the more appropriate number would be $99,000 increase in revenue. So it's difficult to go along with it at this time. IT services, yes, it's a must. It's something that makes the city operate more efficiently. I don't know if this is the right time to increase by $40,000 just being applicable to these trash rates, waste rates. So I think there's other opportunities we can have and will have in regards to increased revenue. So that's why I left my name off or did not sign this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Shea.
Yeah, I did not sign the report either, and my main concern was, again, with Allied, they aren't raising their rates to us. I know there's $99,000 that has to be made up, but for the street sweeping, this is something that the past Public Works Committee, they were discussing on that, do we really need to do street sweeping that many times? Can we cut down to 2? And we were thinking about doing that, but then the new council came in. So there are other ways we can cut down. I don't, again, with the toter being pretty comparable percentage-wise to the 33-gallon, where it makes it more economical, actually, to get the toter, and we want people to recycle. My whole thing was to keep the 33-gallon. I would like to keep that the same. I want to pass on some type of savings to the residents of Elmhurst, because there have been so many things to help fund that there's been quite a few increases. So since we're not getting an increase, I would like to pass that on.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Oh, Alderman Molitor.
Yeah, this is you know, every time we look at fees and we try to raise revenue and things, it becomes a difficult thing. I just want to make a comment, and I have to agree with Alderman Bram about the concern, and I've had this concern a lot about the toters. I know we're closer now than we have been in the past, but to be honest with you, just anecdotally, I don't have any research to prove this, but you know, one of the things we did when we first put in these programs was we were trying to promote recycling, and that was a big point of what we were trying to do. If you drive around the town and you look at the people who have toters, not everybody, but a significant number of those people who have toters don't have recycling out. It's not really promoting recycling because their cost is less than the 33-gallon. I've had a small 33-gallon for about the entire time my family's lived in town. On a rare occasion do I put out 2 garbage cans, and then I'll pay the extra 2 1/4. most of my stuff's recycling. And I think, I'm concerned that in doing this without pushing it even harder on, and I hate to say it that way, but pushing it harder on the toter side, we're still not promoting the recycling as much as we need to be. I think we really need to, and maybe this time probably isn't the right time to do it, but we're at least starting to move in that direction. And I really think we really need to start pushing that and throttling people to recycle. So I'm going to support this, but I just think we really need to, as we look at this down the road in the next year and the next year, throttle this and really push it to get it so that people start pushing on that recycling.
It's a very good point. Alderman Healy, and I'll go to Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two points I'd like to make, and the first is on the Alderman Mulliner's comments and Alderman Bram's comments about encouraging recycling, encouraging the green aspect, and as I voiced in committee, I'm in favor of that too. I don't, however, think that that's fair to bring it up in context to this proposal. When you look at how these rates are the rates that we do with Allied, the rates that we pass along to the residents, it's a per toter use. And when the contract was written, it was written such that Allied was spreading its expense over the toters. The garbage truck doesn't care if it's a 96 toter, 96 gallon or 33, it's the cost per stop, and you can spread it out over the cost of a 96 gallon a lot easier than you can a 33 gallon. It's 3 times bigger, right? So that's kind of how the structure is set up. I think for next year, we will look at making it more proportional so that it is a more green way of doing things. Some may disagree with that. In fact, I'm certain there are some on this council that would disagree with that. But that's for next year. This year, and leading to my second point, it's a matter of revenue. And that's, you know, I kind of did a 180 on this. I too thought that it was difficult to pass on something to the residents when BFI or Allied wasn't passing something on to us. So when at first blush I thought, geez, I don't know how we can do that. But we just got done passing the budget. We had our chance to make all the cuts that we wanted. We made some. We fought over others. We passed a budget that had the revenue streams in there for both this and the motor fuel. I know Alderman Kennedy, myself, a couple others said we're passing a budget that had these revenue streams baked in. And if we don't do the significant cuts at that time and we don't pass a revenue stream, we're talking about additional cuts down the road. I had trouble justifying, though, that, you know, saying we can make additional cuts when we had the opportunity not more than a month ago to do that, and we didn't. So it then became, to me, a simple revenue equation, and if we didn't raise the rates just enough to cover what we needed to cover, there would be an additional offset somewhere down the road. I wasn't prepared to make that offset, so that's why I was supportive of the report.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 questions. I'd like, if I may, to have clarification on exactly what IT services are being covered by this additional roughly $40,000 and what city services are being covered by the additional $27,000 that this is raising.
For that, City Manager Borchert.
A fair share of the IT department is allocated across the board. In other areas, we don't have an exact service to assign a service fee to collect those charges. In the garbage waste service, there is that opportunity, and a fair share application of the larger IT services are applied in that equation to the solid waste collection process. Again, from a city staff perspective, this was a recommendation made to fully identify city costs associated with the service and then build into the service fees adjustments so that all of the contract expenses and the support services from the city in the Public Works Department for leaf pickup, street sweeping, supplies, as you see on the backup to the committee report, would be allocated in a fashion to allow for a fee to be collected from the users of the service. This would just balance then the service fees with the expenses of the service, it doesn't go towards the other goal and objective of the city council at reestablishing the working cash fund and the general fund, which is yet a task and assignment that I know we share, staff, council, to get at. We're just trying to balance the budget at this point.
Do I have a follow-up?
Okay, go ahead, real quick.
Yeah, I apologize, still not sure I'm clear. You're saying that the IT services are just IT that goes to support the waste services surrounding what this is funding? Or did you just say that this is IT kind of divided up among the city? And I'm not sure I completely followed that explanation.
City Manager Borchert, you want to answer that, or do you understand what she said?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm trying to answer it another way, but as central garage services are allocated as a expense, and then there are departmental charges that support the central garage services, that's what's been done with the IT services across the board. And in this case, there is a garbage rate that can pay for the fair allocation of those IT services for garbage. So I think the answer to Alderman Gutenkopf's question is that all of what IT does is spread across all of the city operations, and a fair and appropriate application of the IT services is applied to the garbage service. More isn't being directly yet applied from IT because the IT department hasn't gotten larger yet, but in the IT budget, there is an increase, and that increase in the budget is applied for the garbage fees.
Alderman Gutenkopf? Okay, last time, and then I'm going to go to Alderman Rose, because she has a, or, do you have a hand up, Alderman? I'm sorry, okay, go ahead.
I'm just
Sorry.
nodding in affirmation.
Okay.
Thank you. So this increase in IT is based on the final budget that we passed, which I know included some reductions because we didn't upgrade some of the AV equipment in this building, and there were planned purchases that were pulled out of the budget. So does this increase based on the original proposed budget, or the allocation based on the final budget that we passed?
The allocation based on the extra staffing that was passed.
Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Nybo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been listening to Alderman Bram's objections or concerns with respect to the proportionality between the 33-gallon and the 96-gallon toter. And I think Alderman Healy's point is actually worth thinking about some more. There's two components of the cost to the service that we receive. It's the actual time spent picking up the container, however large it is, and then it's the cost associated with removing the volume of waste, and getting it wherever it needs to go. And there's actually a problem if you move more towards a proportional cost allocation based on the size of the container. I mean, just imagine if we've got 96. Actually, don't imagine. We've got a 96-gallon container. We've got a 33-gallon container. If the 33-gallon container, the cost for removing that was priced any lower than half of the 96-gallon container, I think there'd be a real risk of having people, instead of doing one 96-gallon toter, they do two 33-gallon containers. And at that point, if we have a pricing structure where it's cheaper for a customer to use two 33-gallon containers as opposed to one 96-gallon container, now I don't know this for a fact, but I would venture to say that Allied Waste or any waste hauler would tell you that it's more expensive to remove two containers than one container. And I think that's why we have the pricing such that regardless of the volume, you want the cost per container to be somewhat approximate, and the smaller one be slightly below in rate than the bigger one. But if you have a pricing structure where you can have two containers for a cost less than one container, that's problematic. And that's where we get to if we go based on pure gallon proportionality. So I just want to make that observation that what Alderman Healy said is a very good point worth reconsidering when we go through this renewal of the contract in a couple of years.
Okay. Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, that's part of the reason why I think the whole thing there needs to be a serious look at the whole structure of it, because when they have the 96 toter, in most cases, the arm comes out, picks it up, dumps it in the truck. Nobody gets out of the truck. There's a significant savings to the guys who are picking up the garbage. So I understand where you're coming from. But at the same time, that means that what we have to do when we look at this pricing structure is we also have to look at the price of those stickers. And we have to make sure that there's an appropriate pricing in that stickers to make sure that the cost balances out so that it's appropriate for them to do the 96 versus the 33. So there's a real big mix that's going to have to really be looked at here, and I agree that the whole structure, I mean, Alderman Healy said it very well, the whole structure is going to have to be looked at because it is based right now on how many houses they have to stop at. So now we need to look at, besides how many houses they have to stop at, what do we really want to accomplish? Are we trying to accomplish just picking up the garbage and paying for the garbage, or are we also trying to incorporate some of the ideas of let's push the recycling a little bit harder than we have in the past? And I believe we need to start pushing the recycling a little bit harder than we have in the past, and I think that the only way to do that is to start looking at that, at how do we get to that, and the only way we do it is through the pricing structure, I think, because I don't think people are going to make the change on their own. I just don't think they are at this point. I think the people who are going to recycle are already doing it.
Very good. Okay, so just point of clarification, so if, with your rationale then, the toter would be more money and the per gallon, even though Brand probably won't support this, even though that's how he wanted to change it, but probably has a toter at home. So, we want to do a motion to amend that?
No, I don't want to change
Okay.
this at all.
Okay.
I want to
Okay.
leave this, for this year, I think we need to leave this alone, because I just don't.
Very good.
Like I said, we need to support this and move this forward, but
Very
we need to
good.
look down the road.
Just a small follow-up, and this is the most excitement I've ever had over a garbage issue. Quite interesting. But maybe the way to encourage recycling, it sounds like the toter may actually be a cheaper cost option for the waste hauler in this situation. It's cheaper to use the toter, so why don't we have recycling toters? I mean, I know there have been weeks where I could fill up a 96-gallon toter with recyclables.
Absolutely.
Good idea.
Alderman Morley.
Thank you. A couple points of clarification. I feel like I'm admitting a dark secret. I have a 96-gallon toter at home.
Do you recycle?
You recycle?
That's my point. I fill up 2 recycling bins a week. It just so happens that I've got a family of 5. So, let's not paint the 96-gallon toter folks with a broad brush and say that we don't. Because certainly we do. The other point I would make is that they still have to get out of the truck
Yes.
to hook it up.
Very good. Anybody else before I go for another Alderman Braham, and then I'll go to Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you. There's a few things I just want to add in listening to some of the comments, one of which Alderman Morley just stole from me before I even had a chance. They do, for the toter, they do have to get out the truck and operate it just the same for a 33-gallon. And I'm not saying that anybody with a toter does not recycle, because I see my neighbors recycling as well as using the toter. But the points that I want to make is that when I have brought this discussion up in the past, I've been told by city staff, we'll work out the per gallon for each, the 33 and the 96, when we do this on a yearly basis. And which is opposite what I'm hearing from the dais now today, which is 2 different entities, and I understand that. But the reason why I have brought this up year in and year out, I'm not saying that it should be 1-to-1 per gallon charge for the toter compared to 33-gallon, because there is some benefit in a one-stop shop and greater gallons quantity, less liability with the machine actually throwing out the trash with the toter or not. I do want to encourage not only my committee but the city council that I think that we need to evaluate what we're doing today with waste and recycle removal now compared to at the last juncture when our contract runs out, because there's a ton of options out there where you can have toters with lids on there for the recycling so things don't get knocked over and blown all throughout the city. There's various sizes that we could be doing. This isn't the opportune moment to do it now. We're in the 3rd year of a 5-year contract, but I just want to encourage that because I think that there's definitely some benefits out there. The last piece of the puzzle is in regards to the costs. Street sweeping, for instance, is being stated that we're showing a slight increase, where we're in the second of a third-year contract where the rate has not changed there at all. It's approximately $691,000 and change for 3 years in our last year. But we're seeing a slight uptick in the request for street sweeping. I shared some of the same concerns as Alderman Gutenkopf in regards to the IT services increase, as well as the city services increase. Which I have been told that it was not only for the 1 full-time and 2 interns that would be a shared cost across all departments, but there's also some equipment that couldn't be named in committee that we were purchasing as well, which I actually thought we reduced. So I appreciate everybody taking consideration. I still don't support the increase at this time, and I hope you agree.
Very good. Anybody else? Hearing no other discussion, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Heza.
No.
Pardon me?
No.
Nay. Okay. Shea.
No.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Lipscomb absent. York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Looks like 10 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 absent.
10 ayes, 3 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent. The report passes. And on to item number 8, reports and recommendations of appointed and elected officials. I kind of talked about some of the issues that I probably wanted to talk about here before we got to the consent agenda. So really not a whole lot on my plate. The Annie Ryan Run was an excellent event that took place this past weekend. I was out there with former Attorney General Jim Ryan celebrating that event, and they had a young lady out there, Emma, 15 years old, who was receiving chemo for a brain tumor, who was kind of like the master of ceremonies, and it was pretty, I watched her give herself an injection right before the race, and it was pretty moving as to why we're all out there. But over 3,000 people in attendance, I think for a great cause. I think Alderman Kennedy had a PR, personal record, saw him and his wife out there. And Alderman Wagner was bringing up the rear with his wife. And but it was good to see our council members out there in force supporting our local events. So other than that, that's pretty much on my agenda. Anybody else for recommendations or reports? Hearing none, I go on to other business. And on to other business is item A. Which is, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read that, please.
This is
The referral?
a referral, 10-minute parking space, 206 and 209 North York Street, from Alderman Michael Brand. It is
Okay.
respectfully requested that the attached request for 10-minute parking spaces in front of 206 and 209 York Street be referred to the Public Affairs and Safety Committee for evaluation and recommendation back to the City Council. Respectfully submitted, Thomas P. Borchard, City Manager.
Okay, at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put the referral on the floor. Alderman Wagner with a motion, second by Alderman Brown. All in favor? I guess we could do this by voice vote.
I
Excuse
just
me,
have
Alderman.
City Manager Borchard, how come this wasn't on the consent agenda? Why is it being singled out?
Well, it wasn't put on the consent agenda on Thursday. Chatted about it with Alderman Bram. We still need to do some administrative review on it, but it was requested that we notify the council and get it on the Public Affairs Safety Committee, so we're doing it under other business with your permission.
Okay. Very good. So timing was just maybe a little the issue, so. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one other. What businesses are these spots in front of, too? Is this
City
one?
Hall
Okay.
and across the street.
The edible arrangements?
Yeah, we're not supposed to discuss anything, sorry.
Thank you.
That's a good point. All right. All in favor of putting this referral through the committee? please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? The referral goes to committee. And announcements. Anybody with announcements? I have one real quick. I'll mention a plug for Ray Graham. Their walk is next Sunday, 10 o'clock in the morning at Wheaton, at the county building. It's the first annual walk for Ray Graham. It's a great local organization that helps many ways people with disabilities, kids with autism, adults with autism, CP, you name the disability. They're heavily based here in Elmhurst. Kathy Terrell does a great job. She's the executive director, and I will be out there in force, hopefully with many of you, if you'd be all kind enough to join us. 10 o'clock at the county building, and it's their first annual, and hopefully, given the state, they have seen tremendous cutbacks. Misericordia, another fine organization, $25 million in the state budget. They're getting 12.5. So all these human service, social service organizations have just really been really challenged in this year's state budget and economy. The more need for private side fundraising is important. So I encourage everybody to help with that great organization. Again, locally based here in Elmhurst. So anybody else for announcements? Alderman, City Manager Board, should I go to Alderman Gutenkopf? I apologize, because you had the hand up earlier. Yeah.
Just quickly, this is the last council meeting in May. So we'll announce that the Memorial Day Parade will be upcoming. The council has in the past participated in a group. Those who would be able to attend, we meet in front of City Hall prior to the parade kicking off on Monday, Memorial Day. Got a local Grand Marshal, Mr. Messerschmidt, served in our Navy with distinction as the Grand Marshal, and the folks that help supervise and organize that parade do a great job. Memorial Day Parade.
Thank you, City Manager Borsche, Ralph Pachanio, and all those veterans that served our country well, that put that together. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Just a reminder that the First Ward Coffee and Conversation is tomorrow night, Tuesday, May 18th, at the Elmhurst Art Museum from 5:30 to 7.
Very good. Alderman York.
Finally, I think Thursday night, too, is the Character Counts presentation, and that's a great, one of the first things we did as newly elected officials, one of our first public events, and it's a great way that we recognize folks in the community that have gone above and beyond and created those pillars of character here in Elmhurst. So that's, I believe, at 6:30 in the Frick Center. Is that right?
I believe so. Is that right, Patty?
Correct.
Our clerk, she's got all the documentation and keeps me in line and keeps me on schedule. So I will be out there personally handing out those awards. I'm glad you reminded me of that, and it's in my schedule. And we have many people that do great things in this town, and many of those people are honored on that day. So it's a great event, and we have so many people that contribute to this community, not only here elected in school board and park board, but just people out there helping, and that's really what Elmhurst, I think, is all about. So anybody else? I'm Gutenkopf with a hand up again.
I think it's important that there's been an oversight as we're talking about character accounts, and I think we should recognize a city employee who has been recently recognized, but I don't think we as a council have officially made an announcement about this. Our library director was recognized by the Elmhurst JCs and received their annual award this year. Marilyn Boria did an amazing job, and I think we ought to publicly acknowledge that she was the JC's recipient this year of their distinguished award. So I think many congratulations go to our library director for that.
Absolutely. Marilyn does a great job. Actually, that event is televised on Elmhurst, our kind of town, so I was personally there and actually gave her a nice proclamation on behalf of the city, and we're proud of Marilyn, all the good things that she's done, and our award-winning library, I think, is proof of her good work. So I believe we were first in ranking in state for the last 2 years, and I think we're ranked 6th nationally because of people like Marilyn Boria that make our library what it is. So thank you for bringing that up as well, Alderman. Anybody else? Hearing no other announcements, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley, Alderman York with a second. All in favor to adjourn, say aye, please.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Yeah.